Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome on the second day of the Synergies conference. I hope all of you are here. Maybe the rest will join us. But today we are going to move a little bit more than yesterday. We will split into 4 groups. We will have those parallel panels, which will definitely be kind of an interesting moment of this conference. But at the beginning now, we are happy to gather once more in this big hall. And we have an interesting message via video channel from Ms. Maria de Graça Carvalho, who is the member of European Parliament from Portugal, and she's also the member of the Industry and Research and Energy Committee of the European Parliament. And she has worked a lot on the topic of synergies. So she will introduce the second day of this conference for us.
Good morning. First, let me thank you for inviting me to address you in such an important conference. It is a pleasure to contribute at this event at the beginning of the Czech presidency, and I would like to be with you, but unfortunately, this is the week of Strasbourg, and I had very much difficulty in find a proper flight to arrive to Prague. Science, technology, development and innovation are the basis of competitive and sustainable economy. We cannot reach the targets that we are setting in areas like the fight against climate change and the energy without a constant and collaborative investment in research and innovation. This is why I always defend more investment at European level and at member states level in research, innovation and technology. The challenge that we have in front of us requires an enormous commitment. It is time to show how much we care for our researchers, our startups, our universities and the whole research and innovation community. Today's topic is crucial to a well-functioning and dynamic budget. It's also essential to simplify the lives of beneficiaries of research and innovation programs. Synergies in the research and innovation funding, programs and initiatives can have a multiply effect through combining the potential of the European Union financial resources, amplifying the research and innovation investments and their impact, and increasing the leverage effects and their added value. We need to support investments across the whole value chain, from fundamental research to innovation and reaching the market, early entrance in the market. So synergies are important to combine programs that finance fundamental research like Horizon Europe and the ERC with the structural funds, with the Recovery and Resilience Plan. And this is not just from the financial point of view. Synergies between projects, funding, schemes and entities can improve the transfer of knowledge, data and results, and can allow us to do large projects that are so much required in Europe. This is why the European Parliament, and myself in particular, I have pushed for enabling these synergies, enabling the way that they can become effective, an effective instrument for all actors willing to participate in European projects. Navigating through all the rules brought up by the European Commission and its agencies is not always easy for stakeholders. In my role as rapporteur, both in the EIT Innovation Agenda and in the European partnerships and joint undertakings, I have asked the European Commission to provide a concrete, practical and simple guidelines for the users. The goal was to make sure that the stakeholders are not left alone in finding the best way, the right way, and the possibilities to do synergies between the different funds. In my view, it's a duty for the European Commission to provide the best support possible to authorities managing the funds and to all the actors involved. There is a fundamental lack of understanding how to combine better the different opportunities that we have in front of us, between the different funds, between the different calls for proposals. In general, with the initiatives from Horizon Europe, the structural funds, the recovery resilience plans, the private funds, and all other national funds. This conference is very timely because it allows a very wide and through debate around the synergy settings and how it's best putting them in practice. Moreover, it can allow the European Commission to present their work on these guidelines that they are very much working. And I hope that by the time that you are watching this video, the guidelines should already be public. I hope they will be simple, pragmatic, an effective tool to implement the different types of synergies that we have possibility to use. I'm still not informed about the details of these guidelines, but I can affirm that you can count on me to do all I can to ensure that this tool will work properly. I wish you a very nice conference, very good debates, and I look forward to synergize with you in the future. Thank you very much.
There was Maria da Graça Carvalho. Thank you for it. And now I'm very sorry you found your place to sit. And now I have to ask you to stand up again. I have a good message for those who are in the panel 4. You can stay here. But probably it would be better maybe to move forward, just not to sit all around the hall. But the other workshops, the other sessions will be held on the first floor. So one floor under us. You can get there through the main hall, and there you will find the signs. There are 4 breakout sessions. The 3 are signed there on the floor below us, on the first floor. The 4th panel stays here now. It's a great model. We have their moderators who are wonderful. We have their rapporteurs. We will hear the conclusion from the rapporteurs at the end of the day. But now it's time to split, and we will meet here in the main hall at 11:15, right after the coffee break. So now, please find your panel and enjoy it. So it's the second floor, just to be precise. It's 1 floor below us, but it's the second floor, actually.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here. Good morning. I'm happy to be here with you, to be in present, and I'm also happy to see some audience also online from the web stream. Today we are here at the breakout session dedicated to European partnerships and European missions, and we will discuss the concept of synergies within these two themes. Luckily for the discussion, I'm not here alone. I have five distinguished speakers, and they will contribute with their opinion and with their views on the synergies within partnerships and missions. So first of all, let me introduce the speakers, and then we will go directly to the discussions. So my first guest is Lisa Almechö, the Senior Policy Officer for International Cooperation from the Swedish agency Vinnova. Nice to see you here. The second speaker is Michael Hübner, Senior Policy Officer from the Federal Ministry of Climate Action, Environment, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology from Austria. Nice to see you here. The third speaker is Alexandra Kordecka, Head of Unit for Common Mission and Partnership Service from the DG for Research and Innovation of the European Commission. Welcome. The fourth speaker is Britt Helle, the Director General for Eureka Association based in Brussels. Welcome. And the fifth speaker is Ms. Miroslav Haltov, Vice Chair of the State Representative Group of the Europe's Rail JU. Welcome here too. Before giving the floor to our panelists, I will just try to say a few words about the concept of the European partnerships and missions and about the concept of synergies within these two themes. As you know, the European partnerships are essential components of the European research every year, and it's one of the most important implementation tools of the framework program Horizon Europe, current framework program. The missions as well, these are a new concept of the Horizon Europe program. The missions are a brand new instrument dedicated to some specific tangible solutions aimed to tackle the societal challenges that we are facing. And one of the most important aims of the missions is to reach these solutions in a very near future. So we will have the chance to see the solutions of these missions and of the projects within missions very, very early in the future. They are in its essence multidisciplinary, so this is also a very important fact that the missions, as you already know, they are 5, but nevertheless they are 5. They are 5 in specific areas. They are also cross-cutting, so they are not aimed at tackling one specific challenge. However, they are more open to the whole range of challenges within one umbrella, maybe if it's possible to define it like this. The European partnerships as a concept are not specifically new. We know that the European partnerships were already existing under the H2020 program, and even before. They were not called like the European partnerships, they were called like as other programs, joint programs, for example, or Eranet's co-funds, etc. But within the Horizon Europe, this concept was streamlined a little bit and was rationalized to have 3 specific areas of partnerships. And the aim, of course, is to simplify the landscape and also to give maybe a clear impression of what is the aim of the European partnerships and what we would like to achieve with them. The European partnerships are very important for the member states, at least from my point of view, because it's also some kind of entry point for the member states. They serve as an entry point for the researchers to be able afterwards maybe to compete within the open course of Horizon Europe. So it's a very important tool, and I also believe that all the member states perceive this tool as an important one, as we do here in the Czech Republic, for example. And now the concept of synergies. the synergies, as we have heard yesterday, is a very broad concept, and we can see the synergies in financial instruments, for example, or we can see the synergies in activities, in cooperation, in joining the cooperation throughout Europe and beyond Europe. So it's a very broad concept, and it's up to us how we would like to define the synergies and where we would like to see them. Of course, most of the policymakers focus on the synergies in the financial sense of the word, but I believe that this is not the most important one. From my perspective, and there's also something that the panelists can maybe later build on, is that we have the common cooperation, and we have some space where we can drive the research, development and innovation activities together. So that's from my side, the first scene setting of this panel. And now I would like to ask our panelists, each of them will have like 2-3 minutes to give their overall view of the concept of synergies within partnerships or missions. And then I will just ask you a few questions, if you wish. So maybe first I will ask Lisa, if you can give your statement.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucy, and thank you for inviting me to this very nice city of Prague, and very happy to be here with all of you discussing these very interesting and important questions. For me, I think the most important aspect of synergies is exactly what you mentioned, is the base of the word working together. It's cooperation in all aspects. And here I think it's specifically relevant to discuss the European partnerships and the European missions, because this is really the core of both the partnerships and the missions. I think for the partnerships, we have a long experience of how we combine national programs with European programs, or industrial endeavors with the Commission endeavors. So here we have some experience of how these synergies work. When it comes to the European missions, this is really a new challenge for us, and as Wolfgang Polt mentioned yesterday, the complexity is at a fantastic level, but we still believe that this is a very good instrument and that we can succeed addressing some of the most pressing challenges of our time with the missions. So yeah, that's basically my input, working together in order to address societal challenges. I think that's the base of synergies from my aspect. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughts. Michael, can we continue?
Yes, first of all, hello everyone. Very nice to be here in Prague. Yeah, I want to pick up this impulse to, in the first round, maybe characterize synergies. What is it? And I think another aspect, important aspect, is that it's somehow seems also to be a contradiction in itself, because we of course expect when we leverage synergies that things speed up, things become more powerful and so forth, but at the same time we always recognize that to create those synergies and to leverage those synergies is a lot of work to do and a lot of hurdles to overcome. And here I think I agree with what has been said by Lisa. It's very important, and it's the only way to contribute to the challenges of our time. I'm working in the field of energy, of the energy transition. The Clean Energy Transition Partnership is a very important leveling up of the experiences that we have made with the partnerships over many, many years now. And it's really the moment to make the best out of it, because we don't have a lot of time. I mean, in the next 10 years, this is the partnership that has really to, contribute a big step, and otherwise we will not be there in time. So, and that counts, I think, for many other initiatives too.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. We're looking at Horizon Europe, which is a program that has an increased, strengthened focus on directionality and on impact. So what we need to look at is how we can increase that impact, and the collaboration between those two instruments, one on the other hand, quite old, quite well established, extremely well running, with a lot of experience actually in leveraging private and public funding, like Lucy said. For example, in the first wave of partnerships, they have leveraged 23 billion euro in industry funding and around 9 billion in public funding. And on the other hand, we have missions which are cross-cutting, broad, cross-sectoral, needing a lot of input, not just from Horizon, but from many other sources of funding and many different policies. So how can we make them work together? So this is something that the Commission has been cracking our heads a little bit over the past year or so. And I will be happy to talk to you a little bit also about what we've been doing in terms of getting those two instruments to get together and increase their overall impact. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We are definitely looking forward to it. And Britt?
Thank you. So let me say hello, hello everyone, and thank you for organizing this event to the Czech presidency. It's lovely to be here. It's my first time in Prague, so there's many sort of benefits and synergies to this visit. As you know, I'm representing the Eureka network and now the co-funded partnership on innovative SMEs. I think we are an example of synergies, what can be achieved actually by the national funding agencies cooperating together and with the contribution of the Commission. So the fact that we have become a co-funded partnership, this is the third edition of Eurostars. I feel that this is it's a very good format for us because it's really about leveraging community funding in cooperation with the national funding agencies, which are very active. The Eureka is really the cooperation platform for the European funding agencies. It has existed since 1985. So I think there's a long tradition that has been sort of now channeled into a co-funded partnership. And I'm really looking forward to exploiting the potential for leveraging funds and creating impact. And I guess we'll come back to more details. Thank you.
Thank you. And Miroslav, last speaker.
Hello, everybody. It's my big pleasure and honor to be a speaker here in this panel. And first of all, I would like to ask for showing my 2 slides because I prefer or I am focused on preferably to show you the structure of the partnership and how we in reality use the synergies and complementarities. Yesterday I asked for definition of difference, what is synergy and complementarity. And here at the slides you can see it. Horizon Europe is the main program for research innovation. We are, as a rail partnership, in the cluster Climate, Energy and Mobility Cluster 5. Europe's Rail JU is based on the principle of founding members, public-private partnership. 50% needs of the budget is covered by the founding members. Czech Republic has 2 in the JU, and the first level of synergies we are using in with other partnerships. You can see that clean hydrogen, aviation, SR, HPC, batteries, and maybe more. We are working also on the level of industrial and rail operation community with especially UNIFE and CER, Community of European Railways. And now please switch to this next slide. And you can see how difficult it is to find the synergies and complementarities. If you see how difficult and how complex is the rail system, inside the Europe's Rail JU we have flagship areas which are dealing with the innovation and research in different areas of rail system. We need to cooperate with agencies, with DGs, and of course with the associations of our stakeholders. And stakeholders are coming from the entire sector. They are passengers, companies transporting goods, they are the research associations, organizations, and the general public. We also need to cooperate, and we have them as observers, the other agencies like ESA and EUSPA, and as an integral part of our JU is the European Union Agency for Railways. Later on, according maybe to your questions, I will explain some synergies more in details, because we divided synergies in two levels, horizontal and vertical, and created the metrics structure for using synergies. It's really difficult, really complex, and it's not so easy to understand how the synergies could be used. For the moment, that's all from my side.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and all of you, for all your thoughts. I think that we will have some time to elaborate more on them during the questions that I'm going to give you, and ask you to answer those questions if you wish, of course. First of all, I just would like to highlight that all of you, except maybe Alexandra, because she's the representative of the European Commission and therefore in a different position, but the rest of you are here mainly representing projects or programs, let's say partnerships or projects within missions, and are not like policymakers representing some specific member state or specific nationality, let's say. So your views are very welcome in the sense that we hope that there will be practical, there will be examples from your experience. What do you see as a good example, or where do you see, for example, some obstacles, etc. So don't be afraid to go into maybe detail in this sense, because we are really looking forward to some kind of practical experience from your side. First, I just maybe would like to ask the quite broad question, but depending on you, how you will address it. So what do you think that is the best possible way to avoid duplication and fragmentation and implement joint research and innovation agendas, maybe resulting in the optimal use of available resources? So in very simple way, the question, do you have any practical experience on what is the best way how to join the forces, how to use best the sources that are available to the biggest impact possible? Is there anyone who would like to start, or is it up to me? Maybe no one is asking the floor, but I will try this time the second the second round. So Miroslav, if you can start with your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this question. It's really complicated to avoid gaps and overlaps in synergies. Because, as you know, the partnership, rail partnership, is an integral part of mobility cluster. And mobility is not only the railway, is the multimodal system which needs to accept all modes of transport. And it's very difficult to find a good balance between the research innovation activities within Horizon itself in the cluster, and what is the real work for our partnership, Europe's Rail. We have the overlaps. We identified many overlaps and many gaps, of course. And we try in our structure, because we have inside the partnership the innovation pillar and system pillar. Those two pillars are working together with a big number of interaction, and we try to find the gaps and overlaps and ask the other partnerships or other working programs to change their description of the project proposals or the calls. So this work is very difficult, and it's impossible to completely reduce these gaps and overlaps into zero. So this is also the question for other partnerships, missions, and program committee of Horizon Europe to hear the voice of partnership. And I think it's much better than in the previous Horizon 2020 program. Now the chance to hear each other is much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting view, and I must say that I'm very happy to hear that you are quite active in this role, that you are in contact with other partnerships directly. You try to communicate with them, you try to solve maybe some kind of overlaps, as you already said, and you are not waiting for something to happen. So this is a very optimistic message also from your side. Although I said that all of you are not representative of a specific member state, what comes to my mind is that it's very important also to have representation from the member states in, for example, state representative groups or other management boards of other partnerships, to be able also to have a voice there in the partnership and to be able to promote maybe some kind of vision also inside the partnership of the individual member states. But you have something to add.
May I add a real example of synergies and cooperation? We are preparing now with Clean Hydrogen Partnership the common call for projects, because as a transport and railway, we are focusing on environmentally friendly and zero emission transport, and hydrogen is one of the solutions, and it's impossible to cover this research only in Europe's rail. We need to cooperate with other partnerships. So this is a real example. We are now working on it.
Thank you. And Britt, can you add maybe your opinion on this question?
Okay, I certainly will. So, as you know, I am speaking from the point of view of the European Partnership on Innovative SMEs. So this is the third edition of the Eurostars program run by the Eureka Network and the Commission jointly. So I think to avoid duplication and fragmentation is really the raison d'être of Eureka and of this program, as it is a partnership of 37 Eureka member states, jointly with the Commission, and that these 37 Eureka countries with their innovation agencies, they put together resources in order to have a centralized evaluation platform for then competitive calls for innovative projects. So we have sort of found the area where we can cooperate in order to sort of have an efficient cost management. On the other hand, the contact with the companies, the beneficiaries, is kept by the national innovation agencies, because they know this is a program which is particularly aimed at small and medium enterprises. And these companies, for them, the threshold maybe to apply for the big Horizon programs is too high. So here there's really a system put in place where it's accessible for the small and medium businesses. And this is best then done by the national innovation agencies. So I think this is really a synergy. Sort of we keep the competence where it should be, where we have sort of the best impact. So that's the whole concept of our programs. I think this is a perfect example of sort of creating synergies. It's also about complementarity. Because I think the program finds itself between the national funding programs and the big Horizon Europe programs. So it's also maybe a stepping stone for smaller companies, for smaller beneficiaries to enter into the sort of European funding arena. So we see that some companies, they start off with a sort of smaller project within our program, and then they sort of gain competence in order to be competitive and scale up for the bigger programs. So I think that's also an important part of the partnership. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You touched upon another part of Synergies, which is the synergies also with other sources maybe of funding, but also other actors within the whole landscape, is the industry and specifically SMEs. So it's also a very important issue. I have one question more, one more additional question to you, maybe going into too much detail, but I'm really interested in your view. You mentioned that Eureka is the third edition of the partnership, so-called partnership, but this time within Horizon Europe, the implementation mode was changed. It's co-funded partnership right now. Before that, it was, let's say, current institutionalized partnership. So do you see that there's more possibility for synergies within co-funded form of partnership than it would be under institutionalized partnership? Or what's your vision or opinion maybe of this shift towards the co-funded partnerships?
That's a difficult question. Because I think there's been a lot of discussions within the Eureka network as to the format of the partnership, sort of whether it should have been stayed in institutionalized 185 partnership or co-funded one. I think we have come to grips with it now, and I think the challenge was actually that, as has been said before, the co-funded partnerships are streamlined into grant agreements, model grant agreements. And I think it's fair to say from the network side that since this has been ongoing before, it was felt a bit like a straitjacket that we were put into. But now when you have actually managed to get this contract into the format that was requested, I think it's a good framework. And actually the grant agreement was signed 2 weeks ago in our just before the ministerial conference of the Eureka network. This was a great achievement. So I think it's fair to say it has been a challenge to conform to the format. But the synergies within the co-funded partnerships and the fact that we may be more part of the bigger system might be very beneficial. But I guess we're experiencing it, will experience it, so we'll do our best in order to achieve even more synergies.
Thank you very much. I know that it's a quite premature question because you're still in the beginning of the implementation of the partnership. And congratulations to the grant agreement, definitely. Miroslav would like to add something. Go on.
I have a question now, and maybe for some proposal for the future. Eureka is the program for SMEs. And within the Europe's Rail JU, we need the support of SMEs because they are very innovative in some dedicated topics. And if we can go through complementarity to synergies, if Eureka would like to have the part of our proposals for preparing the complementary calls for projects, for SMEs, which are not able to participate directly in the calls from Europe's Rail partnership, that would be significantly helpful for having the access then and use as a synergy effect from this complementarity. But it's the decision also for the Commission, I think.
Thank you very much for this offer. Now we are witnessing the synergies in a real time. It's nice to see it also here. Now I would like to ask you, Alexandra, from the Commission, to give your thoughts.
Thank you. No, I think this is amazing. So synergy happening before your eyes, and it perfectly illustrates what it is that the Commission is trying to do, which is to facilitate the understanding of what the two instruments are, what are they doing, and how they fit together. Because without knowing what it is that you're looking at, you will not be able to know whether you're duplicating or fragmenting or anything else. So what we've been doing, for example, we have been running matchmaking events between the missions and the partnerships. We have done 3 this year based on themes of health, environment, and climate mitigation and adaptation. And it's really a first opportunity when those two instruments can come together, sit around the table and say, this is what I'm doing, this is how it fits in the overall picture. I mean, the cities mission, for example, is quite well advanced. They're already working with driving urban transition, for example. But some we're really discovering as we go along. We've seen, for example, the partnership on chemical risk assessment, getting really interested in mission cancer, on mission soil or mission oceans, because it looks at the pollution prevention angle. We have been seeing the AI robotics partnerships offering its services to the cancer mission, for example, as they're developing an app for calorie counting, which could be quite interesting for cancer prevention. So these are the sort of soft matchmaking learning opportunities that we're offering. And this is something that we certainly plan on stepping up in the second half of the year. If any of you are planning to attend the Partnership Stakeholder Forum in November, we will have a session on EU missions. I don't know, Lisa, whether you'll talk about the TRAMI fair, but this is another opportunity. And the other dimension is a sort of development of a toolbox. So really, what are the concrete actions that can be taken between the two instruments? So we're looking at things like joint topics, for example, and maybe many of you would know that there's a joint topic between the cities mission and 2.0 and connected automated mobility planned for the forthcoming work program. We're looking at things like cross-initiative assemblies, for example, the hydrogen one. We're looking at partnerships engaging into additional activities. We have the processes for planet partnerships, getting quite interested in the city's contract mission in Grenoble and looking how they can decarbonize their energy-intensive industry to help Grenoble become a carbon-neutral city. And then, exchange of results, just a lot more structured exchange of how those different pieces fit together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miguel, the floor is yours.
Yes. Part of your question was about avoiding duplication, and I always feel a little bit provoked by this approach, because it's always a little bit the question, what do we mean? If we take the Synergies conference as an example, someone could say, yeah, I mean, we have 2 days been talking in different panels about the same things, so what? Shouldn't we avoid duplication? But at the same time, we all know there's a good reason how this was organized, and the important thing is that everyone has his voice in there. We look on the aspects from different angles, but it also shows, and here also the Synergy conference is a good example, the important thing is what you put around that you make sure that you have rapporteurs, that we take away the messages from the different panels, that we bring it together, that we are also interested on what the others are saying, and at the end we are interested about the whole outcome. And I think that this a good example also for what we have to do. I mean, in the field of energy innovation, we have been starting with this new initiative from a couple of, I think it's 10 or 15 aeronets, pre-existing aeronets that have been existing the last 15 years or have been evolved in the last 15 years in this field. And a big challenge was to bring those initiatives together. And a first instrument that we had at hand was the creation of the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. But of course, it was not only these 15 aeronets in the field that we had to talk with, but also all the implementation working groups in the European set plan that are related to the different topics, a huge number of European technology innovation platforms that are active in this field, and the same amount of ERA joint programs where the researchers are together and have these different groups. And for this, we set up a process where more than 300 experts from all these initiatives have been working on this strategic research and innovation agenda. And I think that was already a first big achievement that we had made to really make it a very inclusive and co-creative process. And I must say that this was only possible, I think, due to the fact that we had created in our smart energy systems, ERANETs, before a collaborative digital collaboration platform that we could utilize for this process, particularly as this happened exactly in the year where the pandemic started. But not only for this. I mean, to be honest, the pandemic, I think it helped, because if we would have tried to make this in the original formats with meetings, and at that time, before the pandemic, would not have been so easy to convince people to make it in a digital format. But at that time, we had to do it digital. And that means that it's not only about video meetings, but it's really about working jointly on documents and bring those documents together on a digital platform. So that was really interesting, and I think also a new process. And I think it was successful exactly because of the circumstances in which it happened. But of course also it was challenging because you need to find the resources for this. I mean, to organize this process, and it was really difficult to convince our ministry and our co-coordinator, Swedish Energy Agency, to provide those resources. You need expertise for this, and you need to hire those people to bring them into a process. And we had a big help from the ERA network, from the research institutes working together, which also helped a lot.
Thank you very much. You raised, from my perspective, two very important points. Is the to have the broad vision, maybe, of what's happening, to see the topic from different angles. So to communicate with other stakeholders, other actors, not only at the national level, but also at the level of course, partnerships and other platforms and other thematic areas, other thematic groups. So this is very impressive work that you've described, because to communicate with so many actors, it must be very intense work, as you mentioned, the human resources intensive work, but also in terms of some kind of outcomes, because to come with outcome from these discussions, it's always very, very difficult. I think that the European Commission also has quite intensive experience with this, communicating with 26 different voices, wishing different topics or different approaches, and finding some one way that would be acceptable for everyone. So this is also a very, very challenging task. Thank you for your experience. And Lisa, you are the last for this question.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to, I fully agree with you, Miroslav, that you cannot fully avoid duplication and fragmentation. I mean, we have a super complex system that is Europe, with 27 member states, and we have associated countries, and we have national strategies, we have regional strategies, and we have so many companies and everything. So it would be, I mean, unreal dream to wish for to not have any duplication and fragmentation. I think you mentioned, both Alexandra and Michel, what you need is good discussions. You need good fora to discuss joint agendas, joint challenges, and how we can collaborate better in all these different levels. I think what the European Commission started before the launch of, or in the preparations of Horizon Europe, with this real co-creation. You opened up, we had a lot of discussions to prepare the program. I think this is a really good initiative, and I hope this will really continue and increase, because I think we really need to collaborate between our national systems and the Commission system or the European system. I would also like to just lift an example from the Swedish setting. We have in Sweden many public funding agencies that is connected to different ministries, and if you look from the outside, you could say that, okay, this is a really fragmented and duplicated system that you have. And in terms of the partnerships and how we handle the European partnerships, we have established since the beginning of Horizon 2020 a national sort of coordinating function, that's EU funding coordinating function, that collects all these public funders, and we also have a bit of extra budget that we share, so we need to agree on priorities and so on, even though we are different agencies with different rationales and different tasks and so on. So I think since we have such a complex and fragmented and diverse system in general in Europe, you really need to ensure that you have good systems to put things together. And I'm very happy to hear from you also, Alexandra, that you have started to put the partnerships and the missions in relation to each other. And I think this is really the way forward. Good discussions, agreeing on joint endeavors and joint agendas. I think this is the way forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You also mentioned the coordination, which is, of course, the crucial thing. From our experience at the national level, we can, of course, admit that this is a big challenge also for us, and I think that's for many member states to be coordinated at the national level, to have one single voice, ideally, or to have one specific vision that we want to achieve, and then to push it forward at the EU level, or to be successful within partnerships or missions with our vision, national vision. So that's always a challenge. We have already also touched upon some of the elements of my second question, but I will try to pose the question anyway. My question is related to where do you see some practical experience, some guidelines, I will use this word, how to achieve the synergies really in practice. We have heard that the guidelines from the European Commission was already published. However, still we haven't had time to go through it and to study it into much detail. So we hope that this will be really a useful tool also to implement it in the real practice. But maybe also from your experience and perspective, do you have some specific guides that would help you, or that you would need maybe from the side of the Commission or from the side of the Member States? It's always you need two players for this game, and maybe if you can also comment on the use of cohesion funds. We know that there is a second breakout session dedicated primarily to cohesion funds, but anyway, this source of funding is very often mentioned, or also in the implementation of partnerships and missions. So it will be interesting to hear if you have some experience already, or if you have had some discussions around this theme to combine cohesion funds and national funding and European funding. Maybe as we were touching on the theme of guidelines, I would like to ask Alexander first if you can answer the question, and then we will go to the other speakers. Thank you.
Yes, the guidelines are very famous now. Well, it's something that it took us quite a long time to develop, and we're very happy that they're out. I hope you will find them sort of very hands-on and practical. The section on partnerships is, I think, pretty straightforward, and it actually delineates quite clearly what can be done. And I think quite a lot of things can be done in terms of combining ERDF funding and Horizon Europe funding for partnerships. So I think this is very good news. For missions, of course, the landscape is a little bit more novel. So we really still need to figure out how to do that in the best way. The smart specialization angle, it's probably the most promising area where we can develop further strategies for additional funding for missions, especially, in areas like cancer, for example. But there's still a little bit of work ahead of us. I think I'll stop here and I hand over to my co-panelists.
Yes, Miroslav, go on.
Thank you very much. First of all, I very appreciate the activity of the Commission to publish the guidelines. From our perspective in the partnership, we see that the guidelines needs to be a methodology, something how to work with the synergies and complementarities. Because we found out that there are very big differences between the member states. As Lisa mentioned, there are different strategies, there are different needs, requirements, especially for transport, for rail. And our decision in the States Representatives Group, based on that knowledge, we created a small group based on the questionnaire. First, we asked our member states colleagues to answer 3 questions. Do you have in your member state a program for research innovation related to transport? There was one question. The second, what are your priorities in transport and especially to innovation? Do you cover more or do you focus more for digitalization, automation, and this type of activities, or do you prefer another types? And the third question was if you agree with creating a smaller groups, working groups, with the same or similar activities in the member states. And we created 5 groups based on these activities, based on this questionnaire, and we are now starting to use the synergies differently from the groups of member states, because it seems for us to be more efficient. And the methodology is really needed, and I very appreciate the work of the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your opinion, and I must agree with the methodology as such, if we can call it as such. I don't know, because it's still haven't been a lot of time for the study of this document, but the methodology for the member states, let's say I'm speaking right now from the member states perspective, is very welcome, and at least to have some kind of landscape constructed in some way that we know where we can go, we know what we can do, and we know which resources can be used for specific activities. So this is very, very important. I think you want to add something?
Just to say, we have practical examples. So I hope this is what will be one of the most useful things.
Great, thank you. Michael, can you please continue with your views?
Yeah, it was very interesting, inspiring to listen, and I started to think, I mean, reflecting this from the field where I'm working in, The energy systems, this is really a world where we have to work with so many different innovation ecosystems, not only being at different technologies, but also different levels. I mean, on the one hand side, we have to interact, of course, in Europe with the different needs of the larger European regions. Also their prerequisites, where they start from, with what their energy environment is. On the other hand side, we have to connect to the global innovation level, because, I mean, those technology sectors are not only European, and we, of course, Europe wants to play a major role also in the energy transition globally. That means we have to interlink with these global innovation ecosystems, and we have to interlink with very local and regional innovation ecosystems, because at the end, flexibilization and sector coupling also happens on a very local and regional level. And here we see that we need really a seamless integration of different instruments and also funding and support instruments to work with this complex environment. And therefore, I think those guidelines and the improvement, how we can nationally and also on the European level interlink those instruments and create project chains that really are able to integrate the work of the startups on the one hand side, but also the market introduction programs, and in between we are with the research and innovation. That's really crucial and very important, I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Maybe as you mentioned the regional level, I would like to maybe repeat again, like the really concrete question to the point: do you have experience with the use of cohesion funds or not?
Not yet. I mean, this is really something, particularly the pre-existing aeronets that I've been coordinating and creating. We're dealing with energy system integration, which, I mean, to integrate all these technologies into energy systems is the major challenge of the coming years. And part of this happens on a regional level, as I said, and we have started one activity that is really concentrating on integrated regional energy systems. And we have started in 2015, and in that time we had some contacts also with Interreg programs and so forth, but we didn't manage yet to bring that into practical collaboration. But I think some things have changed now, also from the possibilities that we have. And it was interesting because on the panel yesterday, there was, I forgot his name, the manager of the Interreg program Central Europe, and we already had another exchange that maybe now it's the right moment to really bring it into practical collaboration.
Thank you. Britt, maybe your turn.
Yes, I think it's a very inspiring discussion. So there are lots of ideas come up. So I'll try to concentrate on maybe one thing. Yeah, starting with the cohesion funds. As I think when we prepared for this, I had got some input from my colleagues to say this is too complex, don't go there. But I think what I can say, and there was also an intervention yesterday with an example of sort of Eureka, I think it's in Portugal, where Portugal has managed actually to use cohesion funds to commit to the previous Eurostars program. It was extremely complex, and this is of course depending on national rules. So as far as I've understood now, I had a very quick glance at the guidelines that were published, that now there is a very clear path as to how to use cohesion funds for the partnerships. So my hope is this is now simplified so that it can be broadened, and it's very clear that this is a way to actually help a broader range of EU member states to actually commit funds to innovation. So I guess is this a synergy? It's a shift of the use of the money, but if innovation is a strong sort of element for economic growth, then I think that's a very good result. What I also wanted to mention is that I think linked to the previous question about what we hope can actually be the result of now being part of this group of co-funded partnerships. Maybe if it would be possible to sort of group all the different funding possibilities within sort of the European landscape, so that it's a kind of a one-stop shop for beneficiaries to see actually what's available to them. What is, you know, in my specific situation, where should I go? I think this is something the national innovation agencies do. But as far as I know, but maybe I don't know at all, there isn't such a European platform where actually all the possibilities are mapped. That would be my dream. No, thank you.
If I may add a remark to Michael, because as an energy sector, also the transport is the sector of critical infrastructure. And we need to create synergies between those two critical infrastructure, because we need to build the resilient networks, resilient community. And it's not only energy and transport, it's also the cybersecurity, it's digitalization, it's the agenda which we need for covering the needs for transport. And now it's the very important topic, we need to build also the resilient infrastructure from the military transportation in dual use, not only for military itself, but also for the normal client use. So it needs to cover both. And European Defence Fund is one which we would like to ask for more synergies and complementarities.
Yes, thank you very much. You also mentioned the synergies and the use of EU streams from the centralized managed programs, EU programs, Horizon Europe and other programs. So this is also a very big question. But I would like to react maybe on the remark that mentioned Britt regarding some kind of community of practice. This is also one question that we have discussed here at the national level, that it would be very helpful, of course, together with the guidelines, and to have some kind of rules, specific rules for use of synergies, especially with the cohesion funds, but also to have some kind of community where we can discuss and share the opinion with the other member states. We know that there is some community of practice for Seal of Excellence, but that would be also very useful tool maybe to have it for the landscape of the use of cohesion funds, specifically within European partnerships, but also maybe within other parts of the Horizon Europe framework program. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to lift this CSA project, TRAMI, Transnational Cooperation on the Missions Approach, that was introduced also yesterday. Where we are 16 member states, associated countries that go together in order to looking at how we can support the implementation of EU missions on a national, regional and local level. And we are looking into governance structures, difficult word, actions, processes, etc. At those various levels. And I think this is a very good way of finding the synergies between what we are doing on national level and regional and local levels, and also how we can tweak what we are already doing in order to have a stronger impact and better synergies with the calls on the missions from Horizon Europe. I think in general missions is a really good, I mean, that's a perfect instrument to test synergies, because synergies is really what we need in order to implement the missions. I could also mention the relation to cohesion funds, because we have one use case within the TRAMI project that is specifically looking at how you combine the smart specialization strategy with missions on several levels. So this is a small region in Sweden that we will follow closely. We have also had some preliminary workshops together with regional actors, the ERIN network, for instance, and one of the things, or one of the topics that we have identified as a path for further discussions and where we will dig into is really how you can sort of translate the mission priorities into regional strategies and means. So this will really be one of the important topics that we will, from TRAMI perspective, follow and try to what is it called, to strengthen the collaboration between the regional actors in this respect. So I hope you will have your community of practice eventually. I think in general the Cohesion Funds is really complex and difficult, and I think we are all happy to have the guidelines from the Commission, and I think we also need to really continue to discuss how we can strengthen this and simplify always. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we heard yesterday during the political debate, the simplification is not always the objective, maybe, or for some yes, for some not. So the question of simplification is a bit tricky. But however, in principle, I also agree that the simplification is necessary if we have a lot of resources. So we have to know how to use them practically. But yes, I will leave that for the others, maybe for the political debate, another political debate to elaborate on it. I have one last question for you in this round, and this time I would like to ask you maybe on the thing that we have already mentioned in several of your answers, and of course it's a persistent question: how to cooperate, how to collaborate, and how to get to some kind of national maybe approach towards the partnerships and use of synergies within partnerships, how to cooperate at the national level, to speak with one voice. From your perspective as the representative of partnerships, it's maybe a little bit question that you are not involved directly, but you can see it maybe from how the partnership is managed, how the partnership is organized, how the member states are involved. So maybe you can have some kind of experience on this. What do you see is the best way the member states should be involved in partnerships, and with which approach they should enter the partnership? What is the best practice from the side of the member states within the partnerships? So that will be my last question, and I will try to ask maybe Britt this time, if you can start.
Thank you. I feel I'm repeating myself because I think the whole idea about the Eureka network, which is then the consortium of the partnership on European innovative SMEs, it's really about cooperating between member states. It's a network that meets regularly to exchange practices, to sort of find partners. It's really the basis of how the Eureka programs have been designed. And now the co-funded partnership is then a program that has existed previously in co-financing with the Commission and being a co-funded partnership. But maybe what I would like to mention is that, of course, we should benefit from each other in this, if there are then discussion forums that the partnerships would meet to exchange. I think one of the particularities of the Eureka network is that it's a global network. It's not only European, it's broader. And we have innovation powers like Canada and South Korea that have just been actually become full members of the Eureka network. and we reach out to actually all the continents of the world, with some exceptions. But I think these countries, they also have a lot to contribute. So I wonder actually how we can bring in the international aspect also, because I think European competitiveness goes beyond Europe, right? So I hope that's something actually we can bring into the discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I would try to say it more concretely in one concrete aspect, also for the other speakers. If you have some kind of platform for some kind of mutual learning exercise, let's say it like this, it's a specific term, but some platform where to discuss the national approaches, or what are the national strategies towards the partnerships or towards your specific project or partnership. So whether this is something in place in your case, or whether you use it, or whether you feel it's useful, or is it something that you feel that you maybe don't need? This is my just curiosity. Maybe Lisa, if you can comment on it directly.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, I've already mentioned the EU coordinating function that we have in place in Sweden, and of course we are as agencies, we are involved in the co-funded partnerships. Primarily, we of course take a seat sometimes in the institutionalized one as state representative and support to our ministries. I would say that the main, or one of the main challenges when it comes to partnerships is to have enough resources so that you can actually make very good links with the national programs, engage all the relevant actors at national level, and make it an integrated part of our sort of national funding system. Sometimes the partnerships is perceived as an extra burden and a struggle and so on, and you have to put quite a lot of work into it in order to really to make those links. So I think you need from national funding agencies, you need quite a lot of effort put into it in order to make it a real value, and to have the clear link back to the national programs, and also to have it sort of within the national strategies, that it's a part of it actually. And I think this is perhaps our main challenge from my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Miroslav, could you please?
From my perspective, I think that we as a partnership, we really changed the principles of how to manage the partnership internally. From the previous shift to rail, it was significant change into Europe's rail JU in how we are working, and how we are working with also synergies. And we will ask the member states for better or more support, especially for projects which needs to be demonstrated in the so-called large-scale demonstrators in TRL 7 and higher, because it's necessary to invest some money. It's not the research, pure research or innovation. There is investments, for instance, to the rolling stock, to the infrastructure, which then after the testing remains there. They will not be destroyed after that, or moving back to the demonstrators, but they still remain there. They're on the member states level. Then we need to also, or we would like to ask the Commission for more closer cooperation when preparing the calls for Connecting Europe facility projects, or calls, because we need then as fast as possible to implement the results. For instance, now we have a big project called Digital Automated Coupler, which is extremely expensive project. And as fast as possible we implement these results, we can solve many difficulties which are now in the rail sector. And without helping a dedicated calls in CEF, or in other instruments, it's impossible to be successful. And we need to be involved or invited when preparing the calls, when preparing the topics there. So that's our mission and message to the European Commission, that the partnerships are not similar. There are different needs of partnerships, and we need to be heard from the relevant European authorities. That's our position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will leave Alexandra as the last speaker for this round, so I will ask this time Mikhail.
Yes, practical examples. In our field, the big challenge is, and I think there is no one best way, as you said, Miroslav, I think, so it's really important to see what is the actual need of the sector, how is it structured and so forth. In our case, particularly for the next 10 years, the big question is how to come from a technology-oriented innovation world where we look on single different energy technologies into a system transformation. And this is the big challenge, not only to bring together those different technologies and innovation ecosystems that are related with the technologies, but also to look upon these aspects on an interdisciplinary and intersectoral level. And so you have the technology level, but you also have to look on the organizational level. So what are the business models, what are the market models that are related in energy, but also technology markets. These are also two interlinked worlds. And the third level, of course, what is the transition aspects, the societal aspects? How do these solutions become part of our daily lives, businesses, in the companies, in the municipalities, and so forth? And here we have created a structure that we call a joint programming platform. And this platform aspect is, I think, very important for us on two levels. One thing was the question, okay, how to leverage these many different pre-existing networks that are around, because of course the different technologies and so forth, they have to also go on with their own business. I mean, wind energy, geothermal and so forth, the power sector, the heating and cooling sector. On the other hand side, we need to work on these cross-cutting aspects and on the system integration. And therefore we have created, based on 7 challenges for the energy transition that we had identified in the 3-year process, in the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda, 7 what we call transition initiatives, which are subgroups more or less that are working on joint calls and collaboration and because here also very practically, I mean, these are completely, in some cases, different departments of the same partners that we have in the network, but different departments. In other organizations, it's the same persons. So you also need to define different levels of engagement, because in some cases, one person has to cover all these 7, sub-initiatives. So they could meet days and nights. In other cases, you have different persons. So this is one aspect of organizing the platform. And the platform, the joint program platform, is meant to support all these groups and use the synergies. Developing methodologies, give at hand really good tools so that they can organize themselves and don't need to reinvent everything. At the end, they are practically working on different modules for a joint call, and we put all this together in an annual joint call. And the very important challenge for the platform is to organize these annual circles, because they are overlapping, of course, in the moment where everyone of you knows that, but it's really a practical issue. In the moment you are implementing one joint calls and you are in the selection process of the projects, you have already to start thinking about the next call and so forth. So this is one big challenge for the platform. And I want to add another aspect, because one thing is, of course, to become an annual cycling call machine and to look for financing of projects. But particularly in our sector, I'm so really convinced that this challenge-driven or mission-driven approach is so important. And we cannot afford just to bring out joint calls, finance transnational projects, and then wait for 5 years for some outcomes, and then disseminate the results and hope for the best. That's not we cannot afford this. And we have created since 2015 in the smart energy systems aeronets that we have been working on a thing that we call the knowledge community. And this should become a machine to, I mean, I was talking about a machine, but of course it's humans, but we need to establish, you know, regular processes and efficient processes, how to work actively with the projects to understand as they are going where we are, what are the next critical questions, and we have to become agile and dynamic, which is really a contradiction to national funding agencies, as we all know. I mean, it sounds bad, but they are doing a great job, but their job normally is not to be agile, but really to bring stability and planability and so forth. But this is something that we have to achieve. And it's so difficult to, on the one hand side, convince the partner organizations, not the people that are in the network, but their organizations, that this is now something that comes as an add-on as our job. It's not just to fund projects. We have, as program managers and program owners, to work actively in these knowledge communities, create and distribute knowledge, share knowledge or provide knowledge, system change knowledge to our legal departments, to our regulators on the national level and so forth. That needs to be done, but as Wolfgang Polt already said yesterday, one of the biggest hurdles is to find personal capacities or define personal capacities in the organizations, already for the usual collaborative work to fund projects, but even more for these kind of tasks. And here the only way is to work with external partners to get support. And in some cases, these partners are private organizations that have the knowledge and the capacities and have easier, it's also, I mean, simple things, but to buy a B2 match platform from an agency for doing the matchmaking is very difficult. If you have a private organization that can do and organize that for you, you are much better off. And here we have a practical challenge because basically, from the funding rules, we can integrate those private partners in the partnerships, but we are facing problems with the procurement laws because we are public organizations, and it looked very good at the beginning, but at the end we were stumbling about the fiscal laws, which brought us back to the problem, and we had to take out our private, really important partners out of the grant agreement now, and we have to repair this in a difficult process. But if we could find a way to finance those private supporters in the co-funded partnerships 100% with European money, so fund them 100%, then we would, you know, come over this legal problem, which is really crucial to do these kind of activities.
Thank you. No. Thank you very much. It was a little bit long, but it was very important, and everything you said was really pertinent. I think that you hit the nail, and we know that today, even more than before, the flexibility is crucial, and still the flexibility is something that is missing at the national level, at the level of national authorities. So we are very aware of that, very well aware of that. And of course, we have to do our best to be as flexible as we can. So that's a big challenge also for all of us. Last words from the Commission, Alexandra.
Many thanks, and I'll try to be quick. Miroslav, just to react to you, yes, I think you're absolutely right. We're aware that we need to have sort of more structured dialogue with the partnerships themselves, but also give partnerships perhaps more opportunity to talk to each other, also to exchange. In terms of how we do the dialogue and the exchange of practices with the member states, we will be planning mutual learning exercises later this year on partnerships. And I think TRAMI project is looking at MLEs for missions also, so stay tuned for this. And I think my last announcement is just a reaction to what Lisa said about co-creation, co-design, because we are now embarking into the process of development of the second strategic plan under Horizon Europe 24-27, and this is obviously something where we will be co-creating and co-designing. So the Commission is looking at kicking this off end of this year. So also stay tuned and watch out for this, and I'm sure you'll get more information before that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. We are already 5 minutes late, but it was a rich discussion and I'm happy for it. I still would like to ask whether there is some question from the audience, if you want to ask something or add or to highlight specific aspects on the theme. I don't see it. Yes, there's one question.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your opinion and discussions. It's just a comment, very short comment. I would like to tackle the opinion of duplications, which seems to me that, in fact, it's tendency to avoid or to diminish this tendency. But there are scientific areas where duplications is even necessary or demanded. It's just an example, for biological resource collections or genophond, just to keep them not only on one place in one laboratory, but at different laboratories, because in case of disaster of one laboratory, just to keep the life for the future of these microbes, whatever biological material. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, or for the maybe remark, mainly. Is there anyone who would like to react? Maybe I will react, and I will try also to conclude somehow this session. Of course, there will be a rapporteur for the breakout session, Mr. Joaquin Serrano, who will conclude afterwards, after the parallel session on missions. But I will try to say a few words at least. I think that we have learned a lot of things here today. That one of the highlights of the discussion is the flexibility. We have to be flexible enough to be open, of course, to all the new challenges, but also to be flexible to work with the streams and sources that we have that are on place. But we also have to bear in mind that the partnerships and missions, to be general, are still, although we are trying to put them into specific areas or into specific modes of implementation, that they are still different one of each other. They are individual partnerships. So although we are thinking about partnerships like in co-funded, co-program and institutionalized way, there are like 3 different schemes for the partnerships. We have to bear in mind that every partnership is specific and we have to approach it in a very specific way. And this is also the case of synergies. We can't, or in ideal world, we could use the synergies generally, broadly, in one way, but I think that the reality is much broader and there are more colors in the reality than on the paper. So we have to think about this aspect too. Thank you again for your participation for today. Thanks to all of you for being with us. And we are looking forward to the conclusions of the sessions, of the whole sessions, and we are looking forward also to the plenary session on missions after the coffee break. So thank you. Enjoy the coffee.